In this Google Earth tour, we're going to be looking at glacial landscapes of aggradation or deposition, and we're going to start off looking at things in Alaska. We're going to first go to the high Chugach Mountains, where we're going to take a look at the Matanuska Glacier area. Of course, most of the really big glaciers in Alaska have all sorts of interesting depositional features, and here we can see medial and lateral moraines and the terminal moraine of the Matanuska Glacier as well. Really beautiful medial moraines streaming down the middle of the Matanuska Glacier. A little bit of a close-up look lets us see those medial moraines as well as the really well-developed terminal moraine at the end of the glacier. Now, of course, that glacier is churning out a lot of material. That material runs down the Matanuska River, and as it runs down the Matanuska River, it deposits that material in glacial outwash, which is the large flattish areas that are deposited by glacial rivers. Glacial outwash is best seen where really large glaciers have retreated, and while the Matanuska Glacier is pretty big, it's not nearly as big as the massive glaciers that impacted much of south central Alaska during the last epoch in the Pleistocene. So if we go all the way down to the Palmer Flats, this is a good example of a very broad outwash plain produced by the glacier that eventually retreated to become both the Chugach Glacier and also other glaciers in the high Chugach and Talkeetnas like the Matanuska. Big, flat, broad areas. Here, of course, is the Chugach River, and you can see how this is all depositional material that's from the glaciers that made this so flat. Now, that glacier came to rest at one point in time right down to the north of Elmendorf Air Force Base. For those of you who are familiar with the Air Force Base, you may know that the main base is quite flat, but then just to the north there are a series of hills. Those hills represent the old moraine of that glacier, and behind it you have lots of features that you find in moraines like kettle holes and what are called glaciofluvial deposits, deposits left behind by glaciers and all of the fluvial or water material that is created by a glacier melting and depositing that stuff. In Anchorage, we can see some other great glacial features. Perhaps one of the coolest are the drumlins that are found in the east part of Anchorage. Can't see them really well here, but this is New Naka Valley, and there's a hill here. There's another hill very close to Boniface and Northern Lights, another one over by Baxter as well. They're very distinct, long, elongated hills, which are glacial drumlins. We'll look at some better examples of drumlins in Wisconsin in just a little bit, but I wanted to point out that these features can be found very close to home if you are in Anchorage at least. Along Tudor Road, there are interesting examples of glaciofluvial features. This is the intersection of Tudor Road and Lake Otis. There's a church up here, St. Mary's, that many people know. Providence Complex is over here. Lots of little lumpy hills all through here. These lumpy hills are all glaciofluvial deposits. Of course, Anchorage itself, at least the downtown area, is built on top of a broad outwash plain, as are a number of areas in Anchorage. And other parts of Anchorage are built on top of morainal deposits and other various types of glacial deposits. So there's lots of depositional stuff to look at close to the university. But we're going to go far from UAA here, and we're going to go down to Wisconsin. And from Wisconsin, I just wanted to show you an area where you have what's called a swarm of drumlins. Literally dozens of drumlins on an area. You can see these sort of lumpy shaped hills here. A little bit hard to pick out until you sort of see that pattern that they form. These drumlins were formed under a really massive ice sheet that impacted much of Wisconsin. To the east of Wisconsin is Michigan. And Michigan itself is a product of glacial deposition. Pretty much the whole state has various types of glacial depositions in it. And one of the things that you can see is some of these curved hill-like areas that are easy to pick out because you've got lots of vegetation in these areas. Many of these areas are full of morainal hills. And so we're just going to go and look at one that is to the south of Lansing, right through here. It also helps to form the Grand Rapids, which is located up here. This is all glacial moraine deposit that's subsequently been impacted by everything from stream flow to human agricultural development. But those hills still play a pretty big role in impacting the physical geography and landscape of Michigan. Let's go now over to Ontario, which has all sorts of other glacial landforms in it. I mean, we could spend hours looking at them, but I just want to show you one really key important feature that's fun to look at as well. This is a very famous feature. It's an esker. It's called the Lachlan Esker. An esker is essentially a stream that flowed underneath a glacier, and as it flowed underneath the glacier, it deposited all sorts of outwash-like material in it. When the glacier retreated later on, you ended up with this sort of snake-like hill on the landscape. And then the very final depositional landform that we're going to go take a look at is in Iowa. And we're going to go take a look at the loess deposits. You may recall from your reading that loess is essentially wind-blown glacial deposits that forms this really flat surface, but then it is easily eroded. And so where you have loess deposits and lots of running water, you get some really deeply incised creeks. Very good agricultural land, although it can be exceptionally steep, as we see in this little loess valley here in Iowa. You can see how that stream has really dug its way very deeply. And if we pan up just a little bit, you'll see that the hills are quite steep as well. So these are just a couple of examples of glacial depositional landforms that we see in Alaska and parts of the lower 48. Lots more to see if you take some time to explore the physical geography of the United States.